Hello there. Welcome into a Tuesday edition of the show. So glad to have you, whether you're listening on your radio, streaming the show online at extrasports1300.com, or you've downloaded the free Extra Sports 1300 app, sponsored by Diversus Health, mental health and well-being for all, a veritable cornucopia of sports topics coming your way over the course of the program, and I'd love to get your thoughts at 719-247-1313. And if you didn't have a chance to get in yesterday, in the immediate aftermath, if you will, of the Nuggets Game 7 loss, don't worry, because we're talking plenty of Nuggets here today, including right now. So let's proceed. Where the Nuggets go from here, I think, starts with one question. And I'll pose this question to you. Do you still believe in the Murray-Jokic two-man game? Now, everything came apart in Game 7. Certainly, right? So now with an extra day to kind of decompress, kind of take it all in, look at the bigger picture. Do you believe that Jokic and Murray are still one of, if not the best duos in the National Basketball Association? Because I was thinking about this. If you still believe in it, and if the Nuggets still believe in it, I think you figure everything else around it. Whether that be, trading a Michael Porter Jr., whether it be trying to see if there's another veteran like a Russell Westbrook that you can bring in. You try to dump some salaries to get maybe second-round picks or something, although you usually have to attach those. My point, though, is we found this out in Game 6. Or we're reminded this in Game 6 against the Oklahoma City Thunder. Everything starts with those two players. That two-man game that they have. Everything else comes from that. When that's working, so many other things with the Denver Nuggets work. And you saw in that Game 6, Christian Braun had a monster game because of what Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic together created. So if you still believe that that is one of the best duos in the NBA, I think even though that limits the Nuggets' ability to make moves even more, I think you kind of got to ride with it and see what else you can do around the two of them. And then the flip side of that, if you're kind of, souring on Jamal Murray, and you've seen the last 2 years, his playoff numbers where he's supposed to be this playoff riser, they've been down from where they were a couple years ago. And it's backwards to say because he's lost Bruce Brown or because he's lost Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. No, he's supposed to be, along with Jokic, what gives way to other guys being able to do things. And if you just look at his production, other people's production is dependent on him. His production shouldn't be totally dependent on other people. So you look at the numbers for Jamal Murray, and they are he had an uptick from last year's playoffs, but it's down from where it was when the Nuggets won a title, and it's down from the bubble. And you still have the same questions about how durable he is, how consistent he can be, but he still showed you the flashes of brilliance, the game he was sick in game 6, the game where he drops over 40 against the Clippers. Like, that guy is still in there, but are the Nuggets getting enough out of him? I think that he is a depreciating asset on the Denver Nuggets. I fear that this downturn we have seen from what he was a couple of years ago is going to continue. And because after last season, he was challenged by Calvin Booth and Michael Malone. The one thing that those two gentlemen could agree on was that Jamal Murray had to work harder to be healthy, to avoid injury, to return from injury faster. And yet, even with that challenge, he wasn't. Now, could the Olympics have gotten in the way? Right? Because there were a lot of guys coming out of the Olympics that were banged up, that weren't especially healthy. But Jamal Murray was one that was challenged by his employers to be more available, to be more consistently healthy, and he wasn't. And I don't think that the Denver Nuggets can really afford to wait and see if maybe it was the Olympics that caused Jamal Murray to not, be healthy and be ready to go when the season started. Because this is the moment, and we have seen through reporting over the last few years that Calvin Booth has tried multiple times to move Jamal Murray. He's tried, it's not just this offseason. They've done it before to no avail. They tried to do it before they signed him to the extension, according to reports. They didn't get a return that they were interested in, so they inked him to this large extension. And the extension doesn't make him untradeable, but it hurts his value a little bit, right? Because he's got a max contract. And now you have one of these junctures where he's brilliant. If the series would have ended game 6, it's a different conversation, but it ended in game 7, where he and so many other Nuggets just did not perform on that stage. So this is another moment where I think the pushback that you would receive, whether it be from the media, from the fans, would be less, because the last image of Jamal Murray they have in their head is a disappointing one in game 7. But if you don't move on from Jamal Murray now, I don't know where the next off-ramp is going to be. There was one when he was coming off the ACL. But then he won a championship, so can't really move him then. The next one was before he signed his extension. Clearly, the Nuggets looked at that and decided not to deal him. Now here's another one. And maybe that means there's more down the road. But again, you have this depreciation or this production that has gone down in the playoffs. Is that going to continue? Where I am on this whole thing is, if the Denver Nuggets don't move Jamal Murray now, this offseason, they may never move him. And to some people, that might be okay. To the Denver Nuggets, that might be okay. I don't know the inner workings of this organization. I don't know what's in Josh Kroenke's head. This organization has been incredibly loyal to him over the years. Is there a reason to think that they are less loyal now? Calvin Booth is a different animal, right? I'm talking Josh Kroenke. Michael Malone. Well, now Michael Malone's gone. It feels like all of these other potential roadblocks to maybe trading Jamal Murray are gone. And you're not selling at the highest point. You're not. But this may be your last real chance to make a move and get back what you need to remake this team in the image that it needs to be in order to win. And one team that I was thinking of today, and it's been talked about out there, how about the Detroit Pistons? Okay, this is a team that made the playoffs after how many years out? They have a legitimate budding superstar in Cade Cunningham. He needs a secondary shot creator, or a secondary shot maker, more accurately. Jamal Murray can still provide you that. He wouldn't be the number one option on the Detroit Pistons either. That would be Cade Cunningham. Could the Pistons, who got to the playoffs, now decide with a lot of our players cost controlled, we can go and make a move for a bona fide playoff performer, even if he's not the Jamal Murray of a few years ago? He still produced perhaps enough for a team like Detroit to say, all right, maybe he's the piece with the continued development of our young group and Cade Cunningham. Maybe that's the piece that can take us to the next level. And I know even less about the inner workings of the Detroit Pistons organization. I don't know what Trajan Langdon is thinking here. I'm just speaking from a potential. There's a potential match, I think, out there, and you get back a younger player in Jaden Ivey and try to recreate what you have with Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic with Jaden Ivey and Nikola Jokic. He's younger, he's cheaper. Now all of a sudden you're able to free up some space. Maybe you look to the buyout market, some veterans. Maybe you can make some things happen. You bring back a Tobias Harris, who's an expiring contract. And then you really start to remake this Denver Nuggets team. Outside of that, I don't know how many options there are, but that's one that I found like maybe there's a fit here. But again, I get back to the general premise. Do you still have faith and belief that Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic are one of the best duos in basketball? Because if you do, then you try everything you can to get something in return for Michael Porter. You try to make all these moves on the margins that you can to supplement what you have. You still have Christian Brown on a cheap contract. You're not trading Aaron Gordon. And you give it another run. But if you're looking at Jamal Murray and what he's been in the last three postseasons, in the last three seasons, this may be the opportunity to go out, get younger, get cheaper, get deeper, because Michael Porter's not going to do that. The move that you would make with the Michael Porter is maybe you can bundle him up with other stuff that makes you less deep and go after, and I've talked about this before as recently as yesterday, Kevin Durant. And you just say, we're going to do that. And we're just going to go for it with Jamal Murray and Gordon and Jokic, and we're going to try and take whatever assets we have, and we're going to try and ship them off and get Kevin Durant, and we're going all in here with the team that we have, the makeup that we have. Hopefully adding another star can put us back to where we want to be. And if it doesn't, then you have even fewer assets moving forward. Your roster's aging. It's super expensive. You can't do anything. And maybe it all falls apart. I think those are kind of the two directions that you go, but it revolves around Jamal Murray. I don't know that they can be half in, half out. Or we'll try to make the move for Durant, but then we'll move Jamal Murray to get deeper. I don't know that the Nuggets are in that kind of a position. I think they have to pick a lane. And are they pushing forward with this, let's call it core three, with Christian Brown as potentially the fourth member of the core? Or do you take Jamal Murray with whatever trade value he has left and try to address some of your bigger issues, one of which being depth? Take your thoughts on that. 719-247-1313. Coming up next, of course, before that, the Nuggets have to figure out who their next GM is and who their next head coach is. An ESPN piece by Tim McMahon may be shedding some light on at least one of those two positions. That's next here on Extra Sports 1300. 719-24-7-1313 is the number. More discussion regarding the future of the Denver Nuggets. Got a little bit on the Avs as well coming up. And yes, unfortunately, the playoffs in both the NBA and the NHL will continue, even though they have lost the Nuggets and Avalanche. I don't quite get it. I would just say end the whole playoffs right then and there, but they're going to continue on anyway. The Western Conference Final in the NBA, the Eastern Conference Final in the NHL begin tonight, and I have thoughts on both of those coming up. Started the show by discussing, I think the first question that has to be answered by the Denver Nuggets in terms of what direction they go is how they feel about that partnership, that two-man game between Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray. If they feel like that still has the chance to be the best duo in the league, I don't know that you give up on it yet. I think you push forward with that and try everything else you can in order to supplement that. But if you feel like it's run its course a little bit, you're getting diminishing returns from Jamal Murray, he is now going to be extremely highly compensated moving forward. I think this is another chance for the Denver Nuggets to move on. And maybe because trading Michael Porter and trading Jamal Murray carry different weight to it. I think we can all acknowledge the benefit of moving on from Michael Porter, whether it's to get a different type of player, to get an upgrade, to get financial flexibility. I think that's the easy one, right? Not the easy one in terms of the Nuggets being able to trade him. It's not going to be easy. But just the easy, hey, they could offer up this guy and do something. Yeah, we all get that. Jamal Murray, that's a bigger thing, right? That signals more of the way we were doing it doesn't work. And we have to remake our roster even more so than just, going almost more like a sledgehammer instead of a scalpel. No, that's not. Chainsaw instead of a scalpel. That's more apples to apples. Right? If you trade Jamal Murray, you are in many ways changing the identity of your team. Certainly changing what in the championship season was the best part of your team. With Michael Porter, you can still have a lot of that, but without Jamal Murray, you can't. And it's a bigger signal that what we're doing is not working. It's run its course, and we need to try a new direction. Trading Michael Porter is not a new direction. So do you push forward with Murray and Jokic and Gordon, obviously, Christian Brown still on the roster, and you just try to make whatever move you can for Michael Porter? And the ideal one, I think that is not beyond the realm of possibility, but again, would be very difficult, trying to swing a deal for Kevin Durant. Tom weighs in and says, I love Durant, but you need defense. Can we get 2 10-point-a-game defenders with Durant? Then I'm good. Got to be some defensive stoppers. Well, the premise with that is you don't think Christian Brown and Aaron Gordon are enough defense. And maybe you do, maybe you don't. Because there's going to be no difference between Kevin Durant and Michael Porter defensively. So if you feel like what the Nuggets ultimately need, and it's a viable direction, here's the problem I have with that premise. Have you noticed throughout the league, everyone is looking for those guys, those 3-and-D guys? right? The very same type of player that the Nuggets said was surplus to requirements in Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. Now everybody, that's why I hear Golden State's going to be looking for. They want a 3-and-D guy. Everybody wants these 3-and-D guys. And I'm not saying that the Nuggets shouldn't be in that business, but they're not going to outbid anyone for anything. I think that's kind of what I'm getting at here. The bigger picture of this offseason is that the Denver Nuggets cannot outbid anyone for anything. You want them to get Giannis? Tough. Houston's got you got three of a kind. Houston's got like a royal flush. Like you're not beating that. You can't outbid them for Giannis. So that's why I throw out Kevin Durant. Right? Bunch of teams jockeying for Giannis. That leaves whatever team gets Giannis doesn't now have the assets to go after Kevin Durant. The 3-and-D guys, there are a lot of other teams that are going to be looking to acquire players like that. So I don't disagree with your premise, and I think that could help the Nuggets in a way, as long as it's defense plus the ability to knock down open threes, which I think is precisely what you're getting at. Not high volume 3-point shooters, but hey, Jokic kicks it out to them. They're open. They're going to knock it down. You have to get in line. You're just going to have to get in line because there are a lot of other teams that are going to be interested in players like that. And the Nuggets just don't have the assets to outbid anybody. (719) 247-1313. Of course, before all of this other stuff, you got to know who your leadership group is going to be, your coach, your general manager. This came out from Tim McMahon of ESPN in the wake of the Nuggets losing Game 7. He talked to Josh Kroenke, and Josh Kroenke had a quote that I think is very telling. Quote, outside of the championship, this is the most proud I've been because these guys have really rallied. Outside of winning a title, this is the proudest that Josh Kroenke has been in this basketball team. So that leads me to two potential conclusions. One, David Adelman's getting this job. Right? If he's proud of the way the team responded, then shouldn't some credit go to David Adelman for helping them respond in that way? Now, there's a chance that Josh Kroenke gives David Adelman no credit for it. And then the other conclusion is that he does not want to make major changes. If he's proud of this team, more proud of this team than any other point other than winning a title, then why would he follow that up by blowing up the roster? I actually think that quote is more telling about what the Nuggets may do with their roster than what the Nuggets may do at head coach. Because again, he could give all the credit to the players, none to David Adelman, and have a candidate for the head coaching job in mind. But to be the most proud he's ever been, save for a championship, that tells me his natural inclination is to not blow up this roster, to not make the Jamal Murray trade. Now, is there a middle ground where they can move Michael Porter? Maybe. But I think he's including Michael Porter, battling through the injuries that he's battled through. This tells me that Josh Kroenke's ideal scenario for this summer is to essentially run it back. We'll see what happens with Russell Westbrook and his player option, Dario Saric and his player option. Certainly, if they can get rid of Zeke Najee's contract, they're going to try and do that. But I mean, the core of this team, including Christian Brown, I think it would be Josh Kroenke's. Josh Kroenke would like very much for this group to be back. But this is why it's so important for him to hire the best general manager possible. He cannot hire a GM just because the GM sees eye to eye with him. That would be just taking the interim tag off of Ben Tenzer. Right? I don't want somebody who's going to shake it up. So I'll just remove the interim tag and we'll run it back. But I think it's more important for the Nuggets to bring in somebody. And look, Josh Kroenke can win the day. Right? It's his dad who signs the paychecks here. But I think it at the very least, it's important for Josh Kroenke's view of this team to be challenged. Even if ultimately the Nuggets don't make these sweeping changes, at least get someone in the building with no bias towards any of these players who's coming in fresh with a fresh perspective and to be able to inform Josh Kroenke, hey, this doesn't work. Whatever it is, Michael Porter or the idea that you're getting ready to pay Christian Brown, that's a bad idea. We need to move him now. Or this two-man game between Jokic and Murray has run its course. Whatever that might be, I think it's important to bring in that fresh perspective. Because if he just removes the interim tag from Ben Tenzer, then what difference will it be from when he just elevated Calvin Booth? I thought he regretted that. I thought he regretted the idea of just next man up and not really looking into it and doing a thorough search and casting a wide net. I thought he said he regretted that. And now you have the opportunity to do that? And you're just going to say, we're good with what we have? Not even bring in somebody that can give you a different look at it? You can draw your own conclusions, and I'll take them from you at 719-247-1313. But if you're someone that thinks that changes need to be made, that is not a great quote. It would be better if the word disappointment was somewhere in that quote. If Josh Kroenke is beaming with pride for the way that this team responded to this situation, that means he could very well believe that just running it back with very minor changes, if any, making David Adelman the head coach, Ben Tenzer the general manager, he will feel like he was absolutely right, and the only thing that needed to be removed was the Malone Booth dynamic, and I don't agree with that. But this kind of quote leads me to believe that Josh Kroenke might be feeling that way. 719-247-1313. Coming up next, of course, the Colorado Avalanche have their own issues to figure out this summer and why it's looking less and less likely that one of their supposedly key players will not be an Av next season. I do think you have to say, it didn't work out for either the Avalanche nor did it work out for the Denver Nuggets this year. But if you had to choose one direction, not the band, but I think you would prefer what the Avalanche did. Right? And it stings. And tomorrow, Mikko Rantanen is going to be playing in a Western Conference final. And the Avalanche's, worst nightmare of a Stanley Cup final between the Hurricanes and the Stars is a very real possibility. But the fact that they tried to do something and tried to get depth onto the roster, I think you would prefer over this potential direction of not doing anything. Right? Nuggets didn't do anything at the deadline, and there's a distinct possibility that they don't or can't, characterize it however you want, won't, can't, shouldn't do anything. No, they should definitely do something. I shouldn't throw shouldn't in there. But I think you prefer the mindset of the Colorado Avalanche over the mindset of the Denver Nuggets. The Avalanche are at least trying to do something. But they failed on the execution a little bit. Right? It didn't get them to where they wanted to go or where they thought they would go, and they ended up falling at the hands of the guy that they deemed to be expendable. And they don't look great right now. But at least they tried. And the more and more I think about this offseason for the Denver Nuggets, the more and more I think we're going down a path where Nuggets fans are going to be absolutely irate because there just won't be any changes. Again, whether that's because of want to or the ability to pull something off, we'll find out. But I think the credit that you can at least give the Avalanche, as bad as it looks right now, is that they tried something. But you have to follow through. You have to make it happen. Because the closer we get to free agency, the more and more it looks like Brock Nelson will not sign with the Colorado Avalanche. And to me, that makes Chris McFarland's entire plan completely fall apart. The trade of Mikko Rantanen was as much about later getting Brock Nelson as it was to get Necas and Drury in the moment. And you have once again sacrificed premium draft capital in your first round pick and arguably your best prospect in Callum Ritchie to get Brock Nelson. Again, the thought process, I have to give the Avalanche a little bit of credit because they were trying, they were pushing. I don't think you can just have another title come to you. I think you have to go get it as much as you went and got it the first time around. And we know the Avalanche were a very aggressive front office when they ultimately won the Cup. But the other part of it is it's got to work. The result has to be there. And the result in round one wasn't there. I keep in my head fantasizing that the Colorado Avalanche didn't have to play the Stars in the first round of the playoffs because that would be the best way to do it. I digress. If you give up Callum Ritchie and your first overall pick, your first round pick to get Brock Nelson and he walks away, that's a huge problem. Because the guy to replace Brock Nelson is not on the roster. They've went down that road before. They've done this. where they've tried to go with an internal option, right? After they let Nazem Kadri walk. It didn't work. They traded somebody that you might in some one day at some point see as a second line center, Casey Middlestat. They said, we can't wait for him anymore. So they shipped him off for Charlie Coyle. And Jack Drury was never supposed to be a second line center. That was never the plan with him. So if you lose Brock Nelson, then a lot of this other stuff, it kind of starts falling apart. So what do the Avalanche do? Well, first of all, I think you try even harder to get Brock Nelson to sign. What's the holdup here? What's the sticking point? Figure it out, push through it, and get this guy signed. You didn't trade one of the most important pieces of a championship team and one of the cornerstone pieces of your franchise for the last decade for a rental. So it has to be an external option. And one guy to watch out for tonight that could be that. Again, the best case scenario, you have the ability to negotiate with Brock Nelson. You've been doing it. You've been convincing him Colorado's where he needs to be. You've been doing this since he arrived from New York. So option A is figure it out. Whatever the problem is, figure it out. But you have to have a plan B. And it's not, hey, we'll just next man up. Charlie Coyle's not a second line center. Jack Drury's not a second line center. And you sure as heck don't have anybody in the system that can step up and be that. Sam Bennett is playing tonight for the Florida Panthers. He is due to be an unrestricted free agent. And he is as close to Nazem Kadri as the Avalanche will ever have had since Nazem Kadri. Like Brock Nelson is as good of a second line center as they've had since Nazem Kadri. But Sam Bennett, the way he plays, it's like Nazem Kadri plays. Not going to be as prolific offensively. And again, we're done with that. No one's ever going to be as prolific as Nazem Kadri was in that year. He was a unicorn. He was playing for his next contract. There are so many factors. They're never going to get that level of production from a second line center. But you want that grit and that sandpaper. You want the Avalanche to be tougher to play against. You want teams to be agitated going against you. As mad as you were about the way that the Dallas Stars play, how about if Sam Bennett was a member of the Colorado Avalanche? So that, to me, would be a clear option if Brock Nelson did not sign with the Colorado Avalanche. But that's a plan B. And there's no guarantee. I have no idea whether Sam Bennett wants to play in Colorado. I don't even know that he's done in Florida. He could potentially be done in Florida. But this is why you have Brock Nelson in-house to figure it out. And how are they any better than the Hurricanes in that regard if they traded for Brock Nelson without getting any kind of inkling on whether Brock Nelson might like to be in Colorado long-term? You're not going to fully know until he gets there. But did they have a chance to say, hey, you excited about coming to Colorado? Think maybe you'd sign here? I have no problem with Brock Nelson wanting to test the market. I didn't have a problem with Mikko Rantanen wanting to test the market. But you didn't even get a little bit of an inkling? And let's be honest here. It's not hard to talk to an agent. If the Islanders and the Avs are talking, and the Islanders are like, we're going to give you Brock Nelson, they could have easily talked to Brock Nelson or his representation. The idea that they would just bring him in with everything else going on, to just bring him in blindly and be okay with him being potentially a rental, there's no way. So if Brock Nelson is really going somewhere else, whether it be New Jersey, to be closer to where he's played most of his career. Maybe it's Minnesota. Okay, that's bad. But what's your plan B? Because without Brock Nelson, without a legitimate second line center, then this whole vision you had of getting deeper by trading Mikko Rantanen, it all fell apart in a half of a season. And now you have a glaring hole in your roster that you can't fill. You've depleted your farm system even more. You've traded players that could maybe potentially be an option for you internally. You traded them to get a player that fit the role of a third line center like Charlie Coyle. If the Avs can't sign Brock Nelson and they don't go out and get a Sam Bennett, and I don't know how many other options there are outside of those two, it's going to be bad. I give the Avalanche credit. They went out, they did something, they didn't sit on their hands, as unpopular as it was. They did what they believed was right, and they were aggressive, and for that they deserve credit, as opposed to the Nuggets, who have just kind of stood pat. But it's a results-driven business. And the only way that the Avalanche have any chance of making this Mikko Rantanen thing go away is if they actually have the deeper roster for next year that they thought that they had after they made the Brock Nelson deal. Take your thoughts on that, 719-247-1313. Coming up next, we'll shift back to the Denver Nuggets. The Russell Westbrook experience or experiment. How'd it go? We'll discuss next on Extra Sports 1300. Welcome in Drive Time Sports on this Tuesday. Ryan Kaufman with you. My pleasure to have you. Appreciate you watching the show on our social media platforms, whether that be Facebook, X, Instagram, YouTube, at Extra Sports 1300. Still sifting through the rubble left from Sunday's Game 7 loss with the Denver Nuggets. The Western Conference Finals begin tonight, by the way. If you are interested, Oklahoma City and Minnesota. Are we going to get the MVP announcement? Is that happening? Can we do that now? We know that they were holding off because they didn't want, regardless of what direction, and come on. We all are on the same page here. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is going to be the most valuable player. We know this. So we can stop acting like, well, if it was Jokic, you wouldn't want to motivate the Thunder. They know it's SGA, and they didn't want there to be a repeat of David Robinson versus Hakeem Olajuwon, where Olajuwon had to watch in the playoffs David Robinson be awarded the MVP, get very riled up about it, and then lay waste to the San Antonio Spurs. They didn't want that. Not because they're biased toward SGA or they wanted the Thunder to win. I'm not going that far down the rabbit hole. I'm just saying, you don't want that. You don't want the appearance that you are influencing anything, giving either team more motivation. But now that's over and done with. So can we just do this, name the MVP, and get on with it? The latest that we've had an MVP named in eons. Just do it. Do it tonight. Games in Oklahoma City. We know it's SGA. Just name the MVP. And if you're not already sold on the idea that it's going to be Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, just know that in the only way that they would be able to present Nikola Jokic with the MVP is whether they caught him at the airport or they'll have to go back to Serbia to present it to him, which they have done before. But this feels like a better venue. If it's going to be SGA, do it tonight. Also, Michael Malone, our old buddy, is going to be on the ESPN broadcast. In fact, I should pull that up in here. Just in case he says anything interesting. Because and I talked about this yesterday, that the first time Michael Malone is on there, he's going to be on ESPN's coverage, they're going to ask him about the way things ended in Denver. And what I would expect him to say is something to be very gracious, to say something that does not create headlines. That's what I would expect, but covered Michael Malone long enough to know that would be very difficult for him to do. To just give the coach speak canned answer. And we could talk about how it was probably the right call by Josh Kroenke to make that move, but you can't begrudge Michael Malone if he disagrees. So I don't know what the percentage chance is, but there is a small chance that Michael Malone says something that grabs our attention. So we'll see what happens tonight. I'll pull it up in studio. I don't know when they start. Probably next hour is when they'll start it. But it will be OKC in Minnesota, as you've heard. playing in the Western Conference Final. I have some thoughts on that coming up. But so many question marks with the Denver Nuggets going into this offseason. GM, coach, to trade MPJ or not to trade, or maybe the better question is, can they trade Michael Porter or can't they? Do they trade Jamal Murray? Do they not? And then there's the little business of Russell Westbrook's player option. The Russell Westbrook experiment. It did not end well. It didn't. He was as ineffective as anybody on the Nuggets roster as that Oklahoma City series progressed. He was pretty good in game 1. And we saw in game 6, it was the Strother game. So he wasn't even maybe the most valuable bench guy in the series for the Denver Nuggets, which is saying something because it was a very low bar you had to clear. Had his moments in the Clippers series. But now what happens with Russell Westbrook? First, Vinny Benedetto of the Gazette did ask Russell Westbrook in the postgame locker room whether he was going to be exercising his player option. And Russell Westbrook, in true Russell Westbrook fashion, said, I don't know, what clothes are you wearing tomorrow? And when Vinny said, I don't know, he said, exactly. And then he was gone. Maybe there was a poof of smoke, and then he was gone. The enigma that is Russell Westbrook. And who Russell Westbrook is supposed to be, what he was supposed to be, is an upgrade over Reggie Jackson. That's what he was supposed to be. And that's the fairest way to judge him. Was he better than what they previously had in Reggie Jackson? And you look at the numbers, and I won't, drown you in a bunch of numbers, but just know that Russell Westbrook overall was more productive than Reggie Jackson was the year before. However, he also, a lot of the things that he was better in was a byproduct of him being on the court more. The Nuggets certainly gave him more of a chance to make an impact than they gave Reggie Jackson last year. And so you look at some of the things like the rebounds, the scoring, the assist numbers, they're all up, but also so are the minutes. From an efficiency standpoint, shooting the basketball, Reggie Jackson was better. So you could judge that how you wish. It's a player option, so Russell Westbrook ultimately gets to decide here. I don't think that the Russell Westbrook experiment worked. Not when you consider that the Nuggets had to give up a second-round pick to be able to move on from Reggie Jackson. Right? They had to give up one of the things that would help them actually this offseason, maybe move one of these bigger contracts, or just one of these contracts they desperately want to move, like a Zeke Naji or like a Michael Porter. Having that sweetener of a second-round pick would be helpful. They don't have that. They wanted Reggie Jackson gone, so they tagged a second-round pick with him and sent him on his merry way. And now you bring in Russell Westbrook. For all of that, I look at this in its totality and say you didn't get enough. The idea was you were going to catch lightning in a bottle, that you were going to be the first team in a long time to just embrace all that is Russell Westbrook. And you were going to give him the second unit and just say, we got no production coming from our bench. We'll just let Russell Westbrook do his thing. I'm looking at the numbers. I'm looking at the performances, and I don't think they caught lightning in a bottle. So if you don't do that, if you don't get that production that you were looking for, is he worth all the other stuff? The reported exchange between he and Aaron Gordon. The games that he cost the Denver Nuggets down the stretch. The fact that he ghosted and didn't want to speak to the media after those games. All the other stuff that comes along with Russell Westbrook, is it worth the production that the Denver Nuggets got? And I just look at it and say, no. As a player in a vacuum, if you just showed me Russell Westbrook's numbers and the idea that that guy can be back on the roster for $3.5 million, I go, okay, that's nothing. In the Zeke Naji makes more than $3.5 million. So just from the production standpoint, was he a great upgrade over Reggie Jackson? No. But he was somewhat productive for a bench player, for a role player. At $3.5 million, I wouldn't be opposed to bringing those numbers back. But that's not just what you're bringing back, is it? You're bringing everything that is Russell Westbrook back onto that roster. And I just don't think you got out of it what you wanted. Another thing, too, was you thought that it would maybe push Jamal Murray a little bit. Right? They didn't want to bring in Russell Westbrook a couple years ago because they didn't want to, shake the confidence of a Jamal Murray. Well, now you bring him in, so obviously you don't worry about shaking Jamal Murray's confidence, but maybe you bring him in to push Jamal Murray a little bit. Because for all of Russell Westbrook's faults, the guy stays healthy, and he's out there every single night. The effort level is there, and you can't always say that with Jamal Murray. But I don't think if that was part of the reason why they brought him in, I didn't see it. I didn't see Jamal Murray take his game to new heights. I didn't see Jamal Murray healthier than he's been. So where ultimately in the grand scheme of things, where was the impact? To justify everything else that comes along with Russell Westbrook. And I don't see it. Because the production that he had, if you just would have played Reggie Jackson a little bit more, you probably would have gotten the same production. Ultimately, his call. He has a player option. And look, from the Russell Westbrook perspective, or from his side of it, I don't know what his options are. Who's wanting to bring in Russell Westbrook? Could he go back to like a place like Washington? And just finish up his career doing his thing and not impacting winning? Maybe. But I think this may be for Russell Westbrook as a piece on a championship team or a contending team. I think he's either going to come back to the Nuggets or he's not going to find himself on a team that has real aspirations of winning a title. Because that's going to be Lakers, Clippers, now the Denver Nuggets. It didn't work out in any one of those places, and he didn't exactly leave those teams on the greatest of terms. It was, I'm not going to play revisionist history. It was worth a try. It was worth the try for the Denver Nuggets to bring him in. Again, with the idea that you catch lightning in a bottle, maybe if you embrace who he is, that he'll flourish. It didn't happen. No reason for the Denver Nuggets to be motivated to continue this partnership. I'll say that much. I don't know what's going on in the head of Russell Westbrook. But I don't know how you can label the Russell Westbrook experiment as a success. 719-24-7, 1313, more Drive Time Sports after this. Drive Time Sports, Ryan Kaufman with you, taking your thoughts. 719-24-7. 13-13. Was the Russell Westbrook experience worth it? In some ways, he was better than Reggie Jackson was in that same role. But Reggie Jackson did not have the other stuff. I don't remember too many games where Reggie Jackson cost the Denver Nuggets. And I don't remember there being any reports of players needing to go to Reggie Jackson and confront him about, pulling in the same direction or whatever it was that Aaron Gordon talked to Russell Westbrook about. He wasn't a ton better production-wise. Brett does bring up a good point. How is Reggie Jackson doing other than hitting 3 home runs in a World Series game? Reggie Jackson this year for the Philadelphia 76ers, no home runs, 4.5 points a game. But therein lies part of the issue with the Nuggets making some offseason moves. And what has to be kept in mind and why it may not be that the Nuggets won't or are unwilling to trade anybody. They may not be able to trade anybody. Because, yes, it's not like Reggie Jackson has flourished at his next stop. But there is now this idea you have to, I don't know what I should call it, like the Jokic factor, where whatever they produce, you got to take a little bit off the top of it because they're not playing with Nikola Jokic anymore. Right? Jamal Murray, I started the show by saying, maybe Detroit would like a secondary scorer to put along with Cade Cunningham, a team that maybe wants to take that next step. But whatever he was with the Denver Nuggets, it's reasonable to think he'll be lesser with anybody else because he's not playing with the best player in the world. Because that's the other part of it too. Like it had a chance to potentially work in Denver because of Jokic. Right? That at least the minutes were Russell Westbrook. And even though he was going to be primarily a bench guy, he was going to get minutes with Nikola Jokic. And that's going to make him better. So whatever Russell Westbrook did this year in terms of production, you could take a little bit off the top of that and say that's what you can reasonably expect Russell Westbrook to be for his next team if he does indeed opt out of next year's deal. And I get Reggie Jackson was a bench player for the Denver Nuggets, and the bench is quite poor. But you still on occasion get minutes with Nikola Jokic. And those are going to bring up your averages. But I say it more regarding Michael Porter and regarding Jamal Murray. I don't know what the trade value of these two players is. I really don't. But the idea that the Nuggets are going to be able to, I was just talking with somebody in the hallway. It's like Nuggets should trade Murray and Porter and get Giannis. How is that going to happen when the Houston Rockets can offer Jalen Green, Alperen Sengun, a top 10 pick in this year's draft, and probably an expiring contract or two? I legitimately do not know what the Nuggets could reasonably expect to get back from Michael Porter or Jamal Murray. But that's, again, why they need to make sure that they absolutely nail the hire of the general manager. They have to put the best mind they can on this puzzle. And if he has good negotiating skills when it comes to trades, that would help too. If he's into hypnotism, if he could do that, if he could, physically threaten teams to accept trades. I mean, all of those skills would be good to have with the Nuggets general manager job, because this is sticky situation. It really is. And I don't know that even I am valuing correctly what Jamal Murray would fetch on the open market. Reportedly, Calvin Booth tried to do it before they signed him to his contract. Didn't find what he was looking for out there. This from the 719. It's really befuddling, great word, befuddling to me why they wait this long to announce the NBA MVP. It seems this award is a regular season award, so have your meetings, do what you need to do, and then announce this at the end of the season. Why they wait so long for all these awards, and it's not just this one, it's the other ones as well, is beyond me. And I think you make a good point, because you're going outside of, you're not saying, hey, they need to announce the NBA MVP. You're saying SGA should have been given it during the Memphis series. If I'm reading between the lines correctly, and I 100% agree with you. Why don't they? I could tell you the reason why they don't, because they want to be able to, add it to the mix of storylines when there aren't as many teams. They want the beginning of the playoffs to be about, look at these 16 teams all vying. We don't want to take away any attention from that by also naming the MVP. So we'll wait till the herd thins out a bit, and then we'll do it. Well, the problem this year they ran into is that the two top MVP candidates are playing each other. So they have to kick the can further down the road, which is why they should announce it tonight. They probably won't, because I think doesn't that happen on TNT? TNT usually, remember, because Shaquille O'Neal told Jokic to his face last year that he would give the MVP to Shea. This is what he said last year. Remember that? That was awkward. That was on TNT. Can't remember. Did TNT have the rights to the Western Conference Final? I thought they were East last year too. But I think that's part of Turner's deal. So it probably won't be tonight. It'll probably be tomorrow before the game one between the Knicks and the Pacers. So I think I know the reason why they wait. I don't know that I 100% agree with it, but I think I know the reason why. And the NHL is even worse. The NHL waits a long time. They want to do it in this awards show thing. They wait even long, which I will say, if you're going to wait, that's actually not a bad way to do it. If it's always this date, It's going to be our NBA awards or NHL awards, and we're going to get everyone together and we're going to announce all these. It's going to be award show. People love award shows. I don't, but others do. Like, that would be a better way to do it. Either announce it early or just wait for everything and do this full-blown award show that the NHL does. But like this little trickle where you get some of the lesser awards building up towards the MVP. Nah. Just you know what, NBA? We're ready for it. We know what's coming. Just rip the Band-Aid off. Just tell us it's SGA. Because we know that's what it's going to be. 719-24-7-1313. Coming up next, why one former NBA player thinks that Aaron Gordon is completely wrong when he points to the lack of rest days as a contributing factor to the rash of soft tissue injuries for Gordon, Tatum, Damian Lillard, Steph Curry. That's next here on Extra Sports 1300. So one of the big storylines in Game 7 was the toughness of Aaron Gordon playing through the grade 2 hamstring, grade 1, grade 2, whatever's worse in medical terms. It was bad, and he played through it, and it looked like he had a severely strained hamstring in that game, and yet, sadly, he was one of the more effective Denver Nuggets in their Game 7 loss. Well, after the game, Aaron Gordon had some thoughts on what the NBA could do to help alleviate some of these injuries, right? Jason Tatum, Steph Curry, Damian Lillard, Aaron Gordon. Here's Aaron Gordon's thoughts after Game 7.
Health is a lot, you know. I would really, really appreciate it if there were a couple of days in between games in the playoffs instead of every other day, regardless if you go 7 games. And I understand if you do your work early and you get first seed, then you can have some time off. But I think the days in between games, not just off day and a travel day, but a travel day and a recovery day, just two days. I think the product of the game would be a lot better. I think there'd be just a better product on the floor, just to give all these professional athletes just, you know, one more day of rest, and you would see a higher level of basketball, probably less blowouts.
So not only did he talk about maybe preventing some of these soft tissue injuries, but also leading to better basketball if they have an extra day to rest. Well, Ron Harper, who you remember from, I think, primarily the Bulls, but you may remember him as a Laker as well. Now he is more known as the son of Dylan Harper, who's going to be the player not named Cooper Flagg in this year's NBA draft. He'll be the next guy off the board. Ron Harper took to social media and said that Aaron Gordon's needs to just play harder. He put on X, how about playing harder? In the 80s, 90s, and 70s, it wasn't blowouts like now with less days off. I think that there has to be a correlation here between these injuries and the limits that are being tested with these athletes. Okay, I'm not into making a discussion about which era was better, but I can tell you that with the advancement of sports science and the way we do things, the athletes now are, on the whole, far more athletic than a lot of the players playing in previous eras. Right? And if you just want to chalk that up to the advancement of science, then go right ahead. I'm not trying to disparage. It's the reality of the situation. These athletes nowadays in every league can do more and push the limits of what we think is possible for human beings to be able to do athletically than most of the guys playing back then. This is not a milkman insurance salesman discussion. I love the 90s was like the best time that I've ever had watching the NBA. Love the 90s. But to me, this has to be part of it. Like, we're trying to make these athletes be pushed further than we've ever pushed athletes before to be able to do some of the things they're doing. Well, the body's going to respond, and maybe not in a nice way. So I think there is, and it's like load management. Everybody hates load management, and I understand 100%. the people that lament the fact that they pay so much money to go to an NBA game and the player they came to watch isn't there. I understand that. I can empathize with that. But the practicality of load management, like it's real. And I think that what Aaron Gordon is talking about is legitimate. Like there maybe is a correlation here that having more, and I said, look, I have no problem when a series shifts to a different city for it to be one travel day and one rest day. I have no problem with that. And I think that's kind of all that Aaron Gordon's asking for. I don't think that's too much to ask considering what we ask our athletes today to do. And the fatigue factor, getting into what Ron Harper's talking about fewer blowouts and everything like that, like I think it's a contributing factor. But this is what the NBA has done for a while now. They pit the generations against each other. Not that the NBA is trying to do that. It just happens. The eras are fighting with each other more in basketball than any other sport. I don't know that I hear a lot of former baseball players trash today's baseball player. Same with hockey. I don't hear a lot of older hockey players, diminishing what Connor McDavid does. Feels like basketball culture has this in it. And an extreme example is what happens with Caitlin Clark and former WNBA players. But you get this. We can't even go back to like the early 2000s. Like even athlete like Gilbert Arenas is trashing today's NBA player. Like, dude, it wasn't that long ago. You act like you were from a completely different generation. This happens more in basketball than any other sport. I think Aaron Gordon is right. And I don't think he's asking for too much. And I think to call out how hard guys play, it's low-hanging fruit and it's going to get you engagement. I don't think that's really what it is. But you know who's coming to save the day? Michael Jordan. Did you see, and I don't blame you if you were too wrapped up in the playoffs, because I was as well. This apparently dates back to a week. Michael Jordan is coming back to be on NBC and their coverage of the NBA starting next year, which is the most amazing thing that has maybe happened since that fax where Michael Jordan announced that he was coming back. Like, this is just the best news. That Michael Jordan is going to be on NBC's broadcast in their studio show. Well, apparently he's coming back with the express reason to get people to appreciate what they are seeing now. That he has apparently found that a lot of the discussion today is a little bit toxic. And it's pitting one era against another. It's causing people to diminish and not diminish anything they see now and not appreciate anything that's going on in the NBA currently. And a lot of it is in the name of Michael Jordan. Right? The LeBron MJ debate. People tear down LeBron. They can't recognize LeBron for how great he is on his own. It's all the things that he's not that MJ was. And apparently Michael Jordan really wants to get back on television to basically tell people like me and maybe like you to stop diminishing what we're seeing. Stop trashing today's player, because Michael Jordan himself is a fan of what he's seeing now. I think that's awesome. Because I do think I appreciate today's athlete maybe more than some people do. I recognize the greatness of LeBron while saying, give me Jordan. In fact, I've been accused from time to time of being a prisoner of the moment, to being suffering from recency bias. That I think everything now is great and everything before is trash. Well, I don't think that that's fair either. It's different. But Michael Jordan coming back to NBC to lay down the law, like that's how I read this report. Like he's going to get out, and it's going to work. It's going to work. Like if you watch the NHL coverage on Turner, in any way, the same form that I do, every time Wayne Gretzky talks, there better not be anybody else in the room talking. Because anything that Wayne Gretzky has to say, I will take that as gospel. Whatever you tell me, great one, I'll believe. And I think Michael Jordan's going to have the same effect. If Michael Jordan is talking about how great today's players are, that will go a long way. People will listen to him. Now, I don't think Michael Jordan is just going to show up to be a cheerleader, and that's where I give Wayne Gretzky some credit. I mean, I certainly don't see Wayne Gretzky trashing anybody, but I have seen Wayne Gretzky be critical. And I would say that Michael Jordan's not doing his job if he can't be critical. He's not showing up just to be a cheerleader. But I think part of this is he feels like the discourse has gotten so bad, and a lot of people are doing this and in engaging in these kind of discussions in his name, right? Well, this guy's not MJ. This guy's not MJ. But it kind of plays into what Ron Harper's talking about. Like Ron Harper is the latest former NBA player to just trash today's athlete as being soft or not trying hard. So I can't wait for Michael Jordan to be. I mean, that was like they have Taylor Rooks and they have Dirk Nowitzki and Blake Griffin, and I think that could be an entertaining group, but it's still not better than, Ernie and Kenny and Charles. But then you bring Michael Jordan. That's big time. 719-247-1313. Ron Harper says that players like Aaron Gordon just need to play harder. I don't think that's what it is. I think we're asking our athletes to do more with their bodies than we ever have to entertain us. They may need a little bit extra rest. And again, Aaron Gordon's point is so innocuous, too. Like, he's not mad about it. He's not trashing on anybody. He even listened to the way he starts off.
Health is a lot, I would really, really appreciate it if...
I would really, really appreciate it if we had an extra day when we're traveling. Like, he couldn't have been nicer about it. But there are easy scheduling things that the NBA can do to at least try to help. I'm not a scientist. I'm not a doctor. I don't know if Aaron Gordon's suggestion is going to eradicate soft tissue injuries. But the Nuggets are a great example of a team that kind of got the short end of the stick when it came to the scheduling. And by extension, whatever team they were playing, like Oklahoma City had to play 36 hours after game 3, just like the Nuggets did. The problem is that the Oklahoma City's better equipped with their youth to be able to make that turnaround. But they still had to deal with it. This is not just a Nuggets problem. But I think Aaron Gordon is on to something. And we have long pointed out some of the weird things that the NBA does in scheduling, like, for instance, tonight when OKC has to turn around and play tonight after playing Sunday. Meanwhile, the Pacers and the Knicks get an extra day on top of the days they've already had to rest up. They get an extra one because they start tomorrow. How does that make any sense? 719-24-7-1313. Coming up next, we'll reset things with the 3 stories that are driving the show. You're listening to Extra Sports 1300. Hello there. Welcome in. Drive Time Sports on this Tuesday. Ryan Kaufman with you. And it's my pleasure to have you, whether you're listening to the show on air, online, or through the app, or watching the show on our social media platforms. If you would do so by calling or texting 719-247-1313, or you can also tweet at me at Gingerly Tweets. I really need to I have not turned on, walking and chewing gum, also very difficult for me. I want to see Michael Malone. When are they going to start this pregame show? At 6? Are they starting the pregame show for the Western Conference Finals at 6? Apparently, because it's Sports Center right now. It's past 5 o'clock. Michael Malone is going to be on. That's why I'm interested. I want to hear what he has to say when they inevitably ask him about how things ended in Denver. I have thoughts on Wolves Thunder that I'll share with you in a little bit. Right now, though, let's go to the 3 stories that are driving the show. All right, story number 1. A simple quote from Josh Kroenke after Game 7, but it may give us all the information we need to know regarding the upcoming offseason for the Denver Nuggets. He told Tim McMahon, quote, outside of the championship, this is the most proud I've been because these guys have really rallied. So what could that mean? That means he has a great affinity for the players on this roster. And the way I read into it is if he can help it, he's not looking to move pretty much anybody. And let's be real about this. Nobody's going to say anything if the Nuggets trade Zeke Nnaji. So let's put this in the right context. We're talking about the core. We're talking about Porter, Murray, Jokic, Gordon. And now maybe with Christian Brown mixed in there. We're not talking about Dario Saric or Zeke Nnaji or Jalen Pickett. He's talking about his 5 starters, his core of his team. And this quote reads to me like I did the thing that I had to do in firing Michael Malone, and now we're right back on track. Now, I don't agree with that assessment, but I'm reading this quote and I'm thinking that we are being set up. And maybe I'm setting you up because in the last couple of days, I'm talking about, well, you trade Jamal Murray and you can get this and get that, or you move Michael Porter and throw down Kevin Durant's name. I'm setting you up for disappointment. Because the way that Josh Kroenke telling him outside of the championship, this is the most proud I've been, that doesn't sound like a guy who has lost faith in the core of this team the way that maybe you and I have. Now, the quote was in the middle of an article regarding David Adelman. Now, I could definitely see also that means David Adelman got these guys to fight. He's going to be my head coach. But it's just the overall theme here is I made the change that needed to happen. We don't need to make any other huge changes. And I don't think that's right. At least trade Michael Porter, right? I mean, everybody is of the same mind that they got to do something about Michael Porter because it's not just this year. that we're talking about Michael Porter disappointing in the playoffs. It's been every year. And we know, even if, let's say it's not necessarily that you want Michael Porter gone, but now it's kind of shifted to where, well, Christian Brown, they got to pay him. Like, it's getting to the point where it's just a matter of practicality that they got to move something to be able to improve the team or to make Christian Brown now a core member of this team and compensating him as such. But I wouldn't be shocked. Reading that quote, it's only one line, but I can't help but feel like it's telling us everything we need to know about the direction that the Denver Nuggets are going this offseason. We'll see if I get proved wrong on this. Now, to that end, what do the Nuggets do? I think how you view this team is how you view the duo of Jokic and Murray. Because if you believe that Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray still comprise arguably the best duo in basketball, you don't break that up. You just don't. I understand all the roster deficiencies that they have, but if you have the best duo in the league that is built on duos, you don't break them up. You figure everything else out around them. As difficult as that might be, that's what you do. But you look at Jamal Murray, he's not producing at the level he was 3 years ago. The message didn't sink in that Michael Malone and Calvin Booth relayed, in my opinion, at the end of last season. He was still not available more than he had been in previous years. He wasn't more consistent. And the moments, the playoff Jamal moments, were further between. Fewer and further between. They were there. They happened. But the inconsistency is there, and the availability issues still there. So to me, I say you can trade a Jamal Murray and really, you're not going to be able to get a haul back, but you'll be able to do some things with Jamal Murray by trading him that will get you to fit more in line with what wins in the NBA. Michael Porter's not going to get you that back in a trade. He's just not. But Jamal Murray can. So if you believe that this team needs somewhat radical change, then Jamal Murray's got to go. But I don't know that you can say that and still believe that Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic form one of the NBA's best duos. Because you don't break that up for the ability to now play 7 guys. So how you view what the Nuggets need to do is how you view Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray as a tandem. Story number 2 is that the Avs have their own offseason issues to work out. There is a growing sense that Brock Nelson is not going to be a member of the Colorado Avalanche next year. Which at one point I thought was not a foregone conclusion, but I thought you made the move to get Brock Nelson because you had great confidence that you would be able to keep him. So either this is the Avalanche completely misreading the situation, or they allowed for that to be a possibility, and I don't know how you make the move you did to set off the domino effect, which was trading Mikko Rantanen for a straight-up rental. But if Brock Nelson's going to be the second line center, you got to go get somebody. And there's a guy hitting the ice tonight in the Eastern Conference Final, and Sam Bennett, that would fit that role quite nicely. So it's not, all hope isn't lost if Brock Nelson doesn't sign. But I thought that was the plan. I think that's the best plan because you've shown him the potential you have and how good it possibly can be with this roster. That should be enough. This guy's not going to fetch the most money on the free agent market. So I don't understand how the Avalanche can't sign him. But if they don't, they better be going all in on Sam Bennett. Because if they don't get one of those two guys, then they're right back to where they started, this time without a second line center and no Mikko Rantanen. And then what was all of this for? So we'll see as we get closer to free agency whether Brock Nelson is indeed leaving. But the sense is that he's gone. And then you have story number 3 today. Maybe not the vote from owners that we are most anticipating this week. That will be tomorrow when it comes to the tush push. But they did approve NFL players playing in the Olympics in flag football in 2028 in Los Angeles. And this is not surprising to me. The flag football growing as a sport in our country and around the world, its inclusion in the Olympics is very important to Roger Goodell. And if it's important to Roger Goodell, you know it's important to the owners. So the idea that they would start off with the first Olympics that flag football is in with a bunch of people you never heard of, But now it's official that NFL players, and I'm not saying it's going to be this way forever, but it had to be this way out of the gate. Because when the Olympics go to their next destination 4 years after that, there's no guarantee that flag football is going to remain. So I really think that the next few couple to 3 Olympic cycles at least, you got to have the NFL's inclusion, or else why would some foreign country where football is not that popular to begin with want that as opposed to, I don't know, breakdancing making a comeback in the Olympics? I think the NFL has to be tied to this to really let it take root and have a chance to be included in the Olympics moving forward. And with all the anticipation of flag football being in the Olympics, the NFL had to be involved. And they will be. So build your roster. In fact, I have seen, there's Michael Malone. Now, Michael Malone does not look like a grizzled television veteran. But he's sitting on the court there in Oklahoma City. And we'll see what he has to say about his untimely dismissal from the Denver Nuggets. But in the meantime, 719-247-1313. Now that you know that the NFL will be participating in flag football in the next Olympics, who would you like to see represent Team USA? I have some thoughts, and I'll share them next on Extra Sports 1300. So the NFL gives the go-ahead to allow its players to compete in flag football in the Olympics in 2028. I mean, it'll be interesting. I got to be honest. I'm okay. I don't feel like there has been a void in my life without football in the Olympics. I'm okay with the idea that it's our sport and the world doesn't love it as much as we do. And I don't know. I'm not over in Europe. Maybe the NFL is making waves out there. Maybe the NFL is growing in popularity. I know that it's not going to be more popular than basketball. It's not going to be more popular than soccer. So I don't know what the end game is for the NFL in Europe. But I'm okay with it being kind of our sport. Not that I want to hoard it. If they like it in London, then I don't have a problem with that. But us forcing it on everybody else. You're going to play this. We're going to show up and play games in your backyard. I'm not. I understand why they're doing it. The almighty dollar. But if you told me today that not only would flag football not include NFL players, but they wouldn't even be doing it, I'd be okay with it. I would. I feel like we've found a good mix. I'll put it this way. And I know baseball is back in LA, baseball and softball. But if you told me moving forward that one of those two sports would be included in the Olympics in perpetuity, I would much rather have baseball and softball than I would flag football. But it will be in 2028 quite the spectacle. And I would expect every single game to be essentially the football version of the Dream Team. They are going to obliterate everyone that stands in their path. Every country that is in their path, they will destroy. And probably even more so. And this is not, me being an imperialist or what. Like, just look at the facts here. Like, the Dream Team actually went up against world-class basketball players. Not enough of them on one team to make a difference, but there were other countries where basketball was popular, where they had really good basketball players. I think we are too early to get even one world-class football player from another country. So it's going to be the Dream Team times 10. But we'll marvel at what they're doing. Now, they'll have multiple quarterbacks. Okay, and we'll talk about the inclusion. To me, I think, would you rather have Mahomes or Lamar as the starting quarterback for Team USA? They're probably both going to be included. Or is it Josh Allen? I feel like in flag football, you need a little bit. You can't run over people. And that's one of the good things that Josh Allen does. I think he's better suited for success in tackle football than he is flag football. I feel like with some of the tight windows that would exist, I think Mahomes is the right call. You would certainly get the escapability of a Lamar Jackson. But when I think of flag football, I would think that Mahomes would be the best quarterback in the NFL equipped to take part in that. And last time I checked, they're not allowing the tush push, so Jalen Hurts will not be included. But I think Mahomes would be the number one pick of that. In fact, I saw this list from RotoWire putting the players together that they think have the best chance of being included on the 2028. So we have to think there's a few years here. So they have Mahomes and Lamar, Bijan Robinson as the running back, Tyreek Hill. I don't know about that. I know Tyreek Hill's really wants to do it. Would he be at the height of his powers at that point? I don't know. As long as he's still in the league, I guess he would do it. Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson on the offensive side. On the defensive side, Micah Parsons, Sauce Gardner, Pat Surtain, Cooper DeJean, Kyle Hamilton, and Antoine Winfield. Outside of Bijan Robinson, this literally just lists off the best players at each position. I guess you could say maybe TJ Watt over Micah Parsons. But don't you have to rush standing up? So, I mean, literally, this is just the best. Is Cooper DeJean one of the best DBs outside of Surtain and Gardner? I don't think so. But he might be by then. Yeah, this list is just the best at those positions. I guess I don't have an issue with the list. Could RJ Harvey be the starting running back for Team USA coming up in 2028? Bijan over Saquon? I guess Saquon would be older. Genty obviously would not be a good idea. Again, you got to run around people, not through them. I guess that's a good list. I don't have too much of a problem with that list. But here's the thing. Even if they went, I mean, they could literally, and this is not, don't take it as disrespect to the Broncos. They could literally just put the Broncos on the field in flag football and they'd win. They could put the Carolina Panthers on the football field and they'd win. Like, I'm sorry, and I'm not trying to diminish other countries, but again, this is flag football. The U.S. is going to dominate in a way we have not seen the U.S. dominate in any sport other than maybe women's basketball in recent years. And notice that that's never part of the equation when it comes to picking Olympic sports. It's never, hey, what sport would be really give us a really good event with a high level of competition? No, every single one of these countries just picks a sport they think they can dominate in. I guess that's their right. You know, you incur all the cost of and the hassle of hosting Olympic Games. I suppose the least they could do is let you pick a sport that you're guaranteed to get a gold medal in. But flag football come into the Olympics in 2028. Take your thoughts. Shea Gilgeous-Alexander signing autographs. Still no MVP announcement. As I said, I think it'll be tomorrow. I think that's a Turner thing. Saw Michael Malone on the court. Haven't seen him since. I don't want to hype it up too much because I do think that the most likely outcome is that Michael Malone will say all the nice things and all the right things about how much he enjoyed his time in Denver, and it was unfortunate that it had to come to an end this way and all that kind of stuff. I don't think he's going to say anything that garners headlines. It's notable whatever he says because we haven't heard the guy speak since he got fired so unceremoniously and at such a weird time. But there is the 1-2% chance that Michael Malone goes, still feeling a little bit hard done by on this whole thing. I'm going to say a little something. I'm going to get a little jab in there. Maybe. NBA Countdown starting right now on ESPN. So we'll see what Michael Malone has to say as he is part of the ESPN pre and halftime show broadcasts for the Western Conference Finals. Take a break. Have more after this. Saw this, Ashton Genty telling Kay Adams that Chip Kelly, the offensive coordinator of the Las Vegas Raiders, wants him to stop with the Michael Myers stance when he's going to stand in the Raiders' backfield. I thought that was the whole point. You have this guy that's going to be in silver and black. So I don't know that there's a team Ashton Genty could play for that would make him look more like Michael Myers than the Raiders. And then he's standing there in the backfield, and now that's going to be gone? Well, if Ashton Genty disappoints in year one, you'll know why. And I promise you that's going to be a talking point. The first game that Ashton Genty struggles, it'll be like he needs to go back to his stance. I'm just telling you. Be curious if the Broncos, who it's been widely reported now, tried to move up in the draft to take Ashton Genty and found the asking price to be a bit too rich for their blood. If they would have made Ashton Genty ditch the unique stance. It's interesting. Ashton Genty not able to stand straight up. Thunder and Minnesota could have been the Nuggets. Could have spent this entire 3-hour show previewing game one. It would have been a rematch. And this is why I said, I remember saying this to somebody because we had all the different potential first-round opponents for the Denver Nuggets because nothing was really decided with even a couple weeks to go in the season. And I found myself late in the year, I kind of wanted Minnesota. Not because I thought that the Denver Nuggets would win that series, that it was a more winnable series than the Clippers, but because I wanted that storyline. I wanted those teams to meet up again. Because if you remember, I didn't think that the Nuggets would beat the Clippers in the first round either. So it was not about any advantage competitively. It was just I wanted that storyline to come back around for it to be the Nuggets and the Wolves. And alas, it was not. And we could have gotten it here, but Sunday happened. I think Oklahoma City wins this series. And I'll justify my pick of Oklahoma City with a compliment to the Denver Nuggets. Going into the series, Oklahoma City was looking forward to playing the Denver Nuggets. Because they said this, Mark Daigneault said this, some of the players said this, they knew that going against, certainly more so than Memphis, it would bring out the best in them. And I think you saw in game 4 of the Thunder Nuggets series, the Oklahoma City Thunder grow up in front of our very eyes. In that game, they were no longer a team that you could lean on, and as long as you kept it close, they would make young mistakes because they don't know what they don't know. That ended in game 4. And that's going to be the game because if you recall, that's one of those that the Nuggets had every opportunity to win and failed to do so. Games 4 and 5 were really that way. But game 4 was a game where the Nuggets were close and they tried to lean on the Thunder and the Thunder didn't fold. In fact, it was the Nuggets that made the biggest mistake of the game, which was the 5-second call when Christian Brown was trying to inbound it. In that game 4, and I believe I said the day after that game, if the Thunder win the title, that's the game that they'll be looking back on in OKC and saying that was the moment where they became a championship team. Now, I'm not saying this to make you feel better about losing Game 7, because I, for one, would much rather be talking about Game 1 between the Nuggets and the Wolves. I don't have a connection to OKC that I'm happy that they went through this experience with the Denver Nuggets and are now better equipped to win a title. But that's what it is. And Oklahoma City thought that they would emerge out of this Nuggets series as a different team, a more battle-tested team, a more viable championship contender. And that game was Game 4. The entire series, looking back on it, changed in that game. Now, they still haven't won a title, but neither have the Minnesota Timberwolves. But I think OKC is better equipped, having played Nikola Jokic and played the Denver Nuggets, a championship team that showed their championship medal through much of that series. Not enough of that series, but much of it. And I think that they're in a much better spot. And you watched them for 7 games. They're better than Minnesota. They just are. They're deeper. Same things apply to the Wolves as applied to the Denver Nuggets. They're not deeper than Oklahoma City, and top to bottom, they're not more talented. They do have Anthony Edwards. I do worry sometimes, especially in a game like tonight. I'd be interested to see how much Anthony Edwards has it dialed up. Because there have been times throughout these playoffs where Chris Finch has had to kind of nudge Anthony Edwards and get him going. I believe the phrase that he used was that the light went out. Well, Anthony Edwards, the light can't go out. Not in this series. The Nuggets are a great example. I think the Nuggets are teaching both Oklahoma City and Minnesota some important lessons. Against this Oklahoma City team, the light can't go out, because you never know when it costs you the game that ultimately decides the series. And the way that Shea played at the end of that series, they will, unlike the Nuggets series, the Thunder will have the best player on the court. And I love Anthony Edwards, but Shea Gilgeous-Alexander will be named the MVP. And he's a better player right now than Anthony Edwards. But that matchup's going to be phenomenal. And then I do think that Minnesota can bother the shooters of Oklahoma City more than the Nuggets ever could. Right? With Jaden McDaniels and with Nickeil Alexander-Walker, they have that length on the perimeter defensively that the Nuggets don't have. So I think Oklahoma City is going to be a little bit bothered by it, especially early in this series. But Oklahoma City, I think they're better coached. They're deeper. They're more talented. They'll have the best player in this series. They have home court advantage in this series. I think the Thunder win it. I don't have any rooting interest in this series. I'm just actually, in some ways, I kind of actually like to see the Wolves more than Oklahoma City. Not by a wide margin, but if you just ask me my preference, I would say I kind of want Minnesota and New York. Anthony Edwards on the New York stage, the whole Randall Cat dynamic. I think I'd rather Minnesota win this series in some ways, but I think the Thunder are going to win it. And I think we're going to look back, and they're going to look back, and they're going to say Game 4 against the Denver Nuggets. That's when we became a championship level team. And then tomorrow night, and we'll talk about it more tomorrow, but Pacers Knicks, which I'm excited for. Taking the Nuggets out of it, I really like these two series. I think they're fun. I think they have star power. I think they have a lot of storylines. I have, obviously, outside of New York, but you have three smaller market teams, which I do like. There's a lot to like about these series. The outcome is what I worry about. And I talked about this yesterday. We're going to have our 7th different champion in 7 years. I don't know that trend is one that the NBA wants to continue. It's not that we want super teams. It's not that we want dynasties, but just a team that is kind of omnipresent, that you kind of always got to go through. Boston's probably been the closest to that over the last few years, but I don't think the Larry O'Brien trophy is meant for everybody in the league to have one. And I mean, Minnesota did things the right way with Tim Connolly building it up. OKC did things the right way. The Knicks and the Pacers, these are all teams that have been built the right way. I give them a lot of credit for it. But what's going to happen is one of them's going to win the championship, and then we're going to hear that they got to get rid of somebody. And I don't know that that's great long-term for the NBA. But if you just look at these series in a vacuum and the matchups in a vacuum, I like them a lot. Wish that would be Nuggets, Wolves, and Knicks, Pacers, but alas, it was not meant to be. And let's be real, the Nuggets weren't winning that series. Their only hope was that Oklahoma City was just too young and not ready yet. Well, they proved game 4 they were ready for the moment, and now it was a wrap from there. So game 1 of that series coming up in probably about an hour from now, maybe a little bit less. And then in the NHL, you have Carolina and Florida. And a Florida team that no one really gave much of a chance to. They're kind of like, all right, that's it for Florida. It was a great run, and here they are back in the Eastern Conference Finals, one step away from going to the Stanley Cup Final. And then you have the Carolina Hurricanes, and to me, Carolina is quite a remarkable story here. And to think that the Carolina Hurricanes, there was some thought that Rob Brindamore wasn't the right guy for that job. You have Carolina, who you give them credit for going out, being aggressive, making the deal with the Avalanche to bring in Mikko Rantanen. Right? And then it backfires, either because they didn't do their due diligence or they couldn't convince Mikko Rantanen or whatever the case may be. They had to turn around and trade him, which we've never seen. We haven't seen a trade like the Avs made. Being a championship contender, trading one of your best players in the middle of a season. We've never seen that. And then we've never seen a team then take that player and have to flip him to another team because they couldn't get a long-term extension signed. And so they get Logan Stankoven, and they're in the Eastern Conference Finals. Remarkable what Carolina has been able to do. And people say, oh, I don't like watching Carolina play. I do. I like watching the Carolina Hurricanes play hockey. So Carolina, Florida tonight, and then tomorrow it will be the other conferences in both sports, Dallas and Edmonton again. We'll talk more about that series tomorrow. Talk more about where the Nuggets and the Avalanche go from here, especially the Nuggets just eliminated a couple of days ago. So that's all what I have planned for tomorrow. In the meantime, I appreciate your patronage, certainly taking time out of your day to listen to me. I do, if you give me one more moment, I would like to tell you something that I think will benefit you. You know, maybe if you're a certain age, 40 plus, you may be not really feeling like you're at your best. And you've heard a lot about TRT, testosterone replacement therapy, and how it might be right for you. And it very well may be, but I would urge you to make sure that you go through Low T Center. Don't waste time and money with low quality online TRT that charges you over $100 just to start. They want to just get your money from you as much and as quickly as possible. If you visit the TRT experts today at Low T Center, they'll give you a free consultation and they'll give you a free test to know if you have low T. And then if you do, know that treatment is personalized to your body and most major insurance is accepted. With the freedom to choose if you want in-center care or at-home treatment, you're really in control of your health at Low T Center. And if you're looking to lose weight, you can also right now get a free B12 shot when you start prescription treatment. That offer is limited, so I would act quickly. Book now at fixmylowt.com. That's fixmylowt.com. Enjoy the basketball or the hockey if you're watching it, or whatever else you may be viewing on the television this evening. Tomorrow, will the tush push be banned once and for all? Looks like it. We'll talk about it tomorrow at 3 on Extra Sports 1300.